So the last type of equation that we're going to learn is rational equations. And so remember, rational expressions are just fractions with variables in them. So the first thing that you do is you have to factor the denominator. The only reason you do that is to get a common denominator. So in this case, I couldn't factor any of them because they're monomials. Second thing is you have to get each term to have the same denominator. So get an LCD. So in this case, with this problem, my LCD was 10x. So I just multiplied the 2 and the 5 together, and then there was an x in 2 of them, so I brought that down as well. So that means I had to multiply the first fraction by 2 or 5 to get 10. I had to multiply the second fraction by 2 to get 10 on the bottom. And I had to multiply the last one by 5x to get 10x on the bottom. So then if you look, they all have 10x on the bottom. So after you get a common denominator, what you do is you cancel out the denominators. So notice I just crossed them all out, and then I was just left with the tops. After you cancel those out, you solve the remaining equation. So I combined 5 and 4 and got 1. That equals 5x, and I divided each side by 5, and I got 1/5. And finally, you need to check your answer for values that aren't allowed. And so what that means for a value that is not allowed, it's off to the side. If you get 0 in the denominator when you plug it in, then it's not a solution. So you don't have to fully check it this time, you just have to plug it into the denominator. And if you get 0, then you would say that's not a solution. Also, it says when you have only one rational expression on either side of the equal sign, you have the option to cross multiply. So I think that's probably easier than getting an LCD. So if you can do it, then cross multiply. So for the first example, I only have 2 fractions. I have one fraction on this side and one fraction on this side. So this means I can cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, I need to make sure I distribute. So I have to distribute that 2 to both things. So it'd be 2p minus 4. And then I multiply the other side. P times 5 is 5p. And now I can just solve this as normal. I'm going to subtract over the 2p. So I get negative 4 equals 3p. I divide by 3. I get p equaling negative 4/3. So then all I have to do is I have to take that negative 4/3 and I have to plug it in for my p just on the bottom. And so I asked myself, when I would plug negative 4/3 in for that highlighted yellow p, would I get 0? So is negative 4/3 minus 2 going to give me 0? No. The only way that would get 0 is if for some chance I got my answer and it was 2. If my answer was 2 and I plugged 2 back in there, 2 minus 2 is 0. So that wouldn't have been the solution. But I didn't get 2. I got negative 4/3, and that's fine. Example 3. I now have more than 2 fractions on either side, so I have to find a common denominator. So what I do is I make my little lines here. I ask myself, can I make the 2 into a 4? And I can. So 4 will be part of my LCD, and then any oddball variables. So I have this x here, so x also just come down. So now I multiply what it's missing, so I compare this to this, and what it's missing is the 4. So multiply the top and bottom by 4. So 4 times 12 is 48. And the next one, I compare this next one. It's missing the x. So now I have 3x on top. And then I compare the last denominator. It's a 2 and I need a 4x. So to get that, I multiply by 2x. So 6x. After I get that, I can cross out the bottoms. And I'm just left with the tops that I need to solve. To solve this, I need to subtract over 3x. So I now have 48 equals 3x. I divide by 3. And I get x equaling 16. And so I look at just the denominators, and there's an x in this denominator. If I would plug 16 in for that x, it would not give me 0. The other denominators do not have any x's in it, so it doesn't matter. So my answer is 16. For example 4, you only see 2 fractions, but you need to realize that this last one really is a fraction. So that means I cannot cross multiply because I have 3 fractions. So this is the first time I have to factor the bottom. I'm going to factor the bottom of this one right here. It's a p squared minus 1 if I did difference of 2 squares by square rooting both of these. I get p minus 1 and p plus 1. So let me make my things here. So what they already have in common is they both have, these two have p plus 1. So that means that I can bring down p plus 1 as part of my LCD. And then you bring down any oddballs. So this p minus 1 also has to come down. So this first fraction only has the p plus 1. It needs the p minus 1. I need to distribute this 4 to both things, so 4p minus 4. The second one already has both the p minus 1 and the p plus 1, so I keep it as negative 8. And the last one doesn't have either, so I need to multiply by the p minus 1 and the p plus 1. It needs both. So on the top of the last one, I'm going to have to FOIL this out. So I get p squared, negative 1p, positive 1p, negative 1. The diagonal cancels, so I'm left with just p squared minus 1. So I'm going to cross out my bottoms because I got the same denominator, and I'm just left with the top. I am going to, when I rewrite it, I'm going to add negative 8 and negative 1 because they're like terms, so I'd have p squared minus 9. So now, since I have a p squared, I talked about in the last one that what you have to do when you have a p squared is to get everything on the same side so that you can factor, graph, or use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to move everything to be on the same side as the p squared. So I'm going to add over the 4 to the 9. And I'm just going to subtract over the 4p, and I'm going to just wedge it in between these two because that's where it belongs. So I have 0 on this side. I have p squared. I have that minus 4p that I'm brought over, and then I got to do negative 9 plus 4, which is negative 5. So now I can just factor, graph, or formula, and so I'm going to just factor it, negative 5 and negative 4. That would give me 1 and negative 5, or excuse me, yeah, 1 and negative 5. And so then my two solutions would be negative 1 and positive 5. But I need to check them. So I'm going to look at the bottoms of my things. And the bottom here, I have a p plus 1. So if I would plug in negative 1 for that p right there, negative 1 plus 1 equals 0. So that means that negative 1 is not a good answer because it caught 0. Now if I was to take and plug in 5 for that denominator, so I'm going to take 5 and plug it in here. 5 plus 1 is not 0, so that's good. I got to check the second denominator. 5 squared minus 1. It's not 0. So 5's a good answer. For the last one, I've got 2 fractions and I have a 0. So it equals 0. You can cross multiply this, but what you have to do before you cross multiply is add over the 1 over MC. So that leaves me with C over E on the left-hand side, and 0 plus 1 over MC is 1 over MC. So now I only have 2 fractions, one on either side, so I can go ahead and cross multiply. And when it says right here, it says solve this for E. So that means I am trying to get the E alone. That is my goal. So I cross multiply. 1 times E is E. C times MC is MC squared. And so E is already alone, and so I don't have to do any more solving. If I cross multiplied and say I had like a 2 in front of the E, I would just have to divide it over the 2. But I didn't, so the answer just equals MC squared. Tomorrow we'll be having a video quiz, and so the word for the quiz is B, because I really hate them.